Odds are, if you've consumed any piece of media over the last 20 years or so, you've seen an odd-looking night vision device that is adjacent to the appearance of a cyclops. This is formally known as an NPVS-7, the first of the Generation 3 night vision. Now, the assumption I'm going to make is that the average viewer that went out of their way to watch this video is already a part of the night vision community, or has at least dipped their toes into the rabbit hole that is night vision devices. One thing I've consistently seen in the community is the complete silence around the PVS-7, and whenever it does get mentioned, it seems to be reacted towards with general disdain or disapproval of the night vision device. Before I get into why I think discrediting the PVS-7 is stupid, I'd like to give a brief background into the Shockwave-esque NVD that is the PVS-7. As warfare began to move into a more modern standard, the U.S. Armed Forces found that the NVD known as the AN-PVS-5s, which is Generation 2 night vision, began to show its age among different combat scenarios. It was found to perform inadequately and in desperate need of a replacement, so we turned to Litton Industries. Litton Industries began development of a new system that would see better, way less, and be more cost-effective than its predecessor. However, during the R&D phases of development, it was found that the PVS-7 needed to be developed with a single image intensifier tube in order to save weight and cost. This decision led to a periscope-type mechanism that feeds the image through two mirrors, providing both eyes with an image, albeit the same image. When it was designed in 1982, the model AN-PVS-7A was the first model, and when it went into service in 1988, it was the AN-PVS-7B and D model. In 2001, during the start of the global war on terror, the PVS-7 began to show its age, and as more technologies such as the PVS-14 and VIS-10 night vision, and in the future the GPNVGs became available, the PVS-7 fell into obsolescence. Knowing all of this, why should you, the viewer, be interested in an outdated piece of equipment? I often find that subsections of the military and firearm communities say that one thing is abysmal dog shit, and that another thing says it fucks. Regardless, it is important to be informed on the pros and cons of something rather than simply saying it fucks. So I'll get straight into the nasty bits and talk about the cons of the PVS-7. The first one that most people will notice immediately out the gate running the night vision, or just even experiencing it, is the one-eyed vision. Due to its binocular design of the PVS-7, both eyes see the same image. Your FOV is restricted to 40 for both eyes. On top of this, you may have a hard time adjusting to your changes in depth perception. If you have a hard time traversing or operating your equipment, you cannot train around that, as in, no matter what you do, you will always fumble around with the PVS-7. I would highly recommend considering alternative night vision devices. Moving on to what I believe is the biggest draw for some would be the NVD's lack of auto-gating. Although it is Generation 3, it lacks auto-gating that most Generation 3 night vision devices have. When a bright light is introduced into a low light environment, auto-gating can act as a protectant against damage to the image intensifier. This will also prevent the bright light from washing out the lower light parts of the image. The PVS-7 is equipped with auto brightness adjustment, a feature which had the same idea as auto-gating, however, it has two states where it is dimmed and not dimmed. When a bright light is exposed to the PVS-7, it can create a washout effect for the surrounding low light spots. Your image, although will be protected, it still won't be protected to the same degree as auto-gated imaging. This can be considered a very big draw to the PVS-7. The third and final major flaw of the PVS-7 is its ability to passive aim. While it is possible, it does not hold a candle to the ability of other night vision devices of a monocular or binocular design to passive aim. You can either cant your gun 45 degrees or tilt your head over to the optic, whichever one feels more comfortable for you. Canting's good for close range, not necessarily for 100-yard shots. risers will definitely be your best friend, and any other optic that sits naturally high. And if this is too much for you to train around, I would highly suggest relying solely on your IR device for active aiming only. Regardless of these cons, I will say that the pros, in my opinion, definitely outweigh the cons. The major pros of a PVS-7 is that you are still running Generation 3 night vision. Just because they lack the latest and greatest features of modern night vision does not stop them from being Generation 3. I find that the average FOM of most PVS-7 units I've encountered is around 16 to 1700, which is perfectly passable image quality for a Generation 3 tube. Another big thing that I find is if you are trying to run the PVS-7 on a budget, they have a lower light transmission than a modern PVS-14. Optics which would normally be too bright and wash out on modern NVDs are usable on the PVS-7. While I will say the EOTech is still your best option, your SIG Romeo with 2 night vision settings will work. When compared with the PVS-14 white phosphor, the Romeo 5X DR will wash out. Under my tube, it will look like a completely passable red dot optic. Finally, the whole night vision for the pores notion. That is where I would highly suggest, if you want a genuine true-to-form NVD for the pores, look no further than the PVS-7. The price simply cannot be beat. If you are looking for night vision and you want it to be Generation 3, and you're on a budget, you can find a PVS-7 unit anywhere between $1,300 to $1,500, and I find that you can find, on the higher end, $1,800 for a completely spotless tube. Personally, I acquired my PVS-7 unit for $1,350. Considering the tube's blems were a non-issue, and they were all Zone 3 pepper grain-sized blems, I would say that was a steal for what I got. For mounts, you can either use the Skull Crusher that is issued with the PVS-7 to mount it directly to your head, or you can acquire a Noritos mount, which you can acquire around $75 in good shape, or find one that fell off the back of a truck. Yeah. Given all this information, is the PVS-7 right for you? I have no idea. If this was enough to convince you, go for it. It's completely feasible, and I, for one, have been enjoying my unit so far. However, my main point that I want to get across to you is that if that is the only option you have, go for it. I'm not going to armchair and say that having no night vision capabilities is better than having passable Generation 3 night vision, because that would be fucking stupid. And if you feel that way, then it probably has something to do with...
It's lack of pussy that fucks countries up. Lack of pussy is the root fucking cause of all global instability.
So whether you are looking for some cool milsurp tech, or just to stare at animals at night and remind them whose image you were made in, or you genuinely want to use the PVS-7 for night fighting exercises, go ahead.
Dude, did you see the fucking foreskin protest in Hammond the other day?
Yeah.
Dude, what the fuck was up with that?
I don't know. People like jerking off.
I guess so.